before, I'm now going to introduce Lincoln, a fresh CEO. He started yesterday at Net1 as a CEO. Wow, what an inspiration. But before that, I see Lincoln as a banking veteran with 25 years of experience in the industry, has been across African continent, led, passionate about leadership. He's been into Angola, Congo, Ghana, Nigeria, Namibia, particularly in the banking industry. So if you talk about money, you talk about leadership, you talk about finances, this is your go-to person. He's got a very strong educational foundation in law, also has masters in business administration. A lot of you know there is an MBA. So we're not only talking about a highly experienced person, but we talk about a very qualified person as well. But very passionate about leadership. I like the fact that he also has a blog, Leadership Conversations. You can actually follow it. It's www.leadershipconversations.co.za. Follow that blog, and there'll be a lot more for you to engage on. Thank you, Lincoln. I welcome you on stage.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. Yes, indeed, I started a new journey from 19 years in one organization and suddenly now starting a new journey in a small organization. And again, these are some of the decisions that you are taking in your lives. And what I today want to do is to share with you the context we find ourselves in, where we have a once-in-a-generation crisis of COVID. In that environment, do you survive? Or do you just not only survive, but do you thrive? How do you lead in these times of uncertainty? How do you take your team, your suppliers, your clients to the next level? How do you change your organization? How do you change yourself in order for you to be able to thrive? I hope in the next few minutes, I can journey with you and give you some thoughts about how we need to be thinking about this. So let's start with you. You are entrepreneurs. You are small businesses. You are the lifeblood of this economy. Through small business, we get innovation. Through small businesses, we get unique products and services. And you have got the ability to reach so many of our population. That's the advantage that you bring as small businesses. But when you think about the populations of businesses in the country, 98% of business in South Africa is small business. You employ 50 to 60% of the entire country's workforce across all sectors. And you are responsible for a quarter of job growth in the private sector. That's critical. But you're still one small business among all of these. And what we want to talk about is how your business, how you can make us to make those numbers even better. We can't do that for everybody unless we start by doing it with you. And how do you take your business to the next level? So we're now getting into an environment where we are starting to open the economy. The economy was closed through COVID, but there's been a lot of pain. Many businesses have not survived. Other businesses will not survive because the pandemic has been ruthless. And we've lost so many jobs. It's estimated that 2 million jobs have been lost by small business. How do we make sure that your business doesn't lose more jobs, actually grows thrives in this environment. And these are the things I hope we can talk about. But there are those businesses that have survived. In a survey of about 1,500 businesses, they indicate that in that first 5 months of lockdown, they lost significant revenue. What do you do when you've lost so much revenue? You can't cuddle down and cry. You can't just give up. You have to find a way to reinvent yourself, to rebuild your business. So yes, a year now in, many businesses are talking about the fact that yes, they've managed to make it through. But what happens if there's a third wave? What happens if what is happening to India today, what is happening to other countries today, happens to us again? You can't only work on the basis that says, my plan is that we've now survived. You have to think about all sorts of possibilities. And what will you do? Many people call it scenario planning. What is your scenario planning for your business? Scenario planning that says, if all goes well and we've conquered this, we've got vaccinations, what will happen to my business? Another scenario might be, we may not get the vaccinations enough. Or another scenario might be, what if there's a third wave? These are all scenarios you have to work at and plan for those scenarios. A wish is not a plan. A prayer is not a plan. They may have the plan, but there has to be a plan. And a plan that you can execute depending on what the forces are that you face. But there's currently pain. Pain that many SMEs are looking at and are facing. Financing is a difficult issue because banks themselves are battling for their own survival. If they're looking at you and they're saying you want more money and they're saying the industry that you're in may not survive, can they give you money? If they give you money, will you be able to pay it back? So these are the things that you have to be looking at. Funding is an issue. Even when there is funding, some of the SMEs don't know the opportunities of where else to get market. Others, even when they have the funding, don't understand the different funding arrangements or the different things to look at between short-term funding, long-term funding, having lines with your funders. Then the slow demand. What do you do now when there's slow demand? What about your expansion plans that you had? How do you slow them down? Or do you still invest in them because you think there is an upside? Do you have alternatives of where you're going to sell your products? And then how do you access the right markets? How do you sell your products differently? Then owners and founders also battle to deal with their staff. How do you lead in these times? Because all you're thinking about is that everything I've built is being destroyed. And when somebody comes and talks to you about their problem with a staff member, you are shouting at them, get out of my office. Don't you see I'm not getting any business? But how is your business without its staff? How is your business without its clients? How is your business without suppliers? And we want to talk about how one does those things. Liquidity, cash management is a big issue. Liquidity and cash flow are things that are limited, and you've now got to see how you manage those. So, the central theme of what I want us to understand and talk about today is that we all face the same COVID storm, yet we are in different boats. We face the same COVID storm, yet we're in different boats. And as an owner of a business, as an entrepreneur, as a founder of the business, you have to understand the boat that you're in. And your responsibility is to navigate your boat safely to shore. But that's not enough, because you're the leader of the business. you are the owner of the business, you also have to navigate the other boats. The boats of your clients, the boats of your staff, the boats of your suppliers, the boats of your funders, also safely ashore. And that requires compassion. That requires empathy. That requires sensitivity. So that you're not only looking at yourself. Yes, when you're alone, you can be frustrated. You've seen your business fail, money you're not getting. But if you lead selfishly, you only think about yourself, that business will not survive. You have to navigate the other boats as well. So you have to think about what 2020 was for many people. And part of it is carried into 2021. Those who've worked from home, it's been painful for many people, especially those who are bringing up young people when there was no schooling and people had to juggle everything. Mental health. Many entrepreneurs have not understood mental health. Mental health is real. We're very empathetic when we see someone with a broken leg. We can empathize. Broken arm, we can empathize. But when it's mental health, when somebody is depressed, when somebody's got anxiety, we are not as empathetic. And as leaders, we have to understand mental health and its impact on our business. We have a scourge of violence against women and children, which has exploded during the lockdown. Again, if you're not understanding what your staff are going through, you will miss getting the best out of them. Be there, be supportive of their staff. Obviously, loss of business, loss of income by employees, and then painfully, death in many families. This is the context in which your staff and your clients are working. So you can't only think about your pain of losing business without taking these people and their pain and their suffering into context so that you can be able to lead your team. So people are in different boats. Some of the people you work with are focused. They're like, we know what needs to be done, we're going to do this. Don't only go with them. Cherish them, support them. Others are calm. They can handle this. They're like, we got this. But others are stressed. Others are overwhelmed. Take your entire team with you. Support your entire team through that journey because everybody goes through difficulties. Now, this is the emphasis I want to focus on. The future is bright. And you say, how can this guy say that? It is because the company of the future is taking shape in the current environment. The company that's going to take your business is planning now how to destroy your business. Your competitors are planning now how they are going to thrive in the new world. So if you're spending your time just painfully commiserating with yourself about the past, you are missing the opportunity that 2 or 3 blocks from here, somebody else is going to be better through the crisis. Which means that your business has to reinvent itself. Which means you have to reinvent yourself. Crying that this didn't help, COVID this, that's all fine. But it's affecting all of us. Who's going to recover first? Who's going to succeed through the crisis is the key. So it's not enough to say, I have survived lockdown. We want you to say, I thrived post-lockdown. And the most effective way to manage change is to create it. Do you have the ability to create change in your organization? To create change among your employees? To create change in yourself? Because if you don't, unfortunately, you will not succeed. Obama says this very well. Sticking your head in the sand might make you feel safer, but it's not going to protect you from the coming storm. You have to face the difficulties ahead and rethink your business in order for it to survive. Now, there are more younger people may not know Nokia. Those of us who are older, we know Nokia. And if you had a 9210, you were it. And you had that belt clip, and it would go like this. But today, Nokia is no more. And when it failed, its CEO said, we didn't do anything wrong, but somehow we lost. Wrong. They didn't change. They didn't change. They were the market leaders. They had it all. But the market was changing around them and they didn't change. What does that Nokia moment mean for your business? And it's not only Nokia. There are many other companies that were great in their time, never changed. Today they are no more. Kodak, Xerox, Compaq, JCPenney, BlackBerry, Yahoo, Blockbuster, Sony, Sears, and there are many I could mention also in South Africa that were great companies, great people, great minds, but they never saw the need for change. Is your company going to be next? Is your business going to be next? Or will you take the opportunity to change? Talking about change or announcing change does not equate to change. As far back, Niccolo Machiavelli said, it ought to be remembered that there's nothing more difficult to take in hand, more perilous to conduct, or more uncertain in its success than to take the lead in the introduction of a new order of things. Change cannot just be announced from your office. You have to go and win people's hearts and minds and show them why the new is there. Many of us in our individual capacity are doing different things than we used to do because of COVID. How does that affect your business? Sasol is going to do different things than how it did before. How is that going to affect your business? All of us have to understand that change has impacted us. And so you as owners of business, as entrepreneurs, as leaders, it's about coping with that change. That's the leadership capability that is needed today. So how are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? The first thing is each and every one of your business has to go back to reinvent itself. How? By asking, who are we as this business? What's our purpose? How do we create value for Sasol or whatever client that we serve? What's our culture? Because so much has changed. To think that all you're going to do is to do what you did yesterday is not going to cut it. Secondly, how do we operate? The way we operated yesterday is not going to be good enough for tomorrow. Many of your businesses where you are hierarchical, you know it all, you are the boss, everybody just looks up to you. Yes, sir, yes, ma'am. If that's the way you run your business, your future is bleak. If your decision making is too slow, your future is bleak. If you don't treat talent in your business as a scarce resource, not treat your people as the gold that you have, you are not going to survive. And then you have to think about, how am I going to grow? What's my ecosystem? What data do I have? And what do I learn and unlearn in creating the new? These are very difficult things. They require you to lead them through the entire company. You have to let go of many things that you used to do. Let go of certain practices that you have. Let's go further. Those of you whose businesses are now being managed remotely, where the people are not in the office, Remember, good leaders don't care what folks do with their time. They care that the job is done. What does that mean? Micromanagement does not work remotely. Trust does. Let me repeat. Micromanagement does not work remotely. Trust does. Communication builds trust and accountability. It's not enough for you to say, yeah, but you know I'm an engineer. You know I just produce these products. I'm not good at communication. Guess what? Go learn. Go learn. Because if you're saying, I accept that I'm not good at communication, you're accepting defeat. And you have to be accountable. Don't turn remote work into a scapegoat. You can be warm with people regardless. You can find a way of interacting with them. So as I try and wrap up, what I'm asking you to do is manage by mind, but lead by heart. Manage by mind and lead by heart, because that is the way of the future. Are you approachable? Are there conversations that can be had with you? Or you are renowned for being that person who everybody fears? If you are wearing that tie or that dress or that overall or that whatever that day, everybody knows it's going to be a horrible day. You can't lead in this new world with that attitude. Do you foster an environment of psychological safety where people can talk? Because that's where new ideas come from. That's where people will come with incredible ideas. And then do you lead with integrity? Are you ethical? Is what you say, what you do, all aligned? So how do you show people that you care? How do you show the people that you lead that you care about them? Because you can't lead the people if you don't love the people. Leading people without loving them is manipulation. You can't save the people if you don't serve the people. Arrogance doesn't work. Being too pompous, too important doesn't work. Take your people with you. And those of you who follow sports, do yourself a favor. If you're an entrepreneur and you're not doing much, go watch Rassie Erasmus's journey with the Springbok team. And how he led each individual in that squad. And they were able to bring the cup home. So this requires authenticity. Don't be the greatest fake of somebody else. Don't be the greatest replica of somebody else. Be authentic. The greatest asset we have as leaders is the size of our hearts. A leader with a big heart can understand their people, understand their pain, anticipate their needs, and lead them in the deepest possible way. Not this superficial green thing that we do, but it's actually engaging people. Get to know them, know what makes them tick, and they'll go to war with you. So let me end off by saying, how do you become this extraordinary leader that we want you to become? Firstly, it's engagement. Engage everybody in your company, from the receptionist to the board. Your title will not go away. Your importance will not go away. But if you are these people who are obsessed about title, obsessed about being important, you are not going to win. Engage people. And when they believe in you, they'll do everything for you because they know they can trust you and they know you trust them. True engagement matters. In my entire career, it matters for me how I engage people. Working across 19 countries, it matters for me that all the people I've worked with, they know where I stand, I know where they stand. And I can go to war with them because we are together. 2, being proactive. You've got to be the one always thinking about the ideas and spark ideas also with your people by being proactive. Self-awareness. Be aware of your impact on others. Be aware of the things that you do that scare people or rub people up the wrong way. Self-awareness, being conscious of yourself is very, very, very important. Composure. Right? Composure. Leadership is not drama. You know, if things are going bad and the first thing people look at the leader, oh, everything is going bad. Calm. Composure is very, very, very important. Be like a duck. You're swimming so calmly. Obviously, you're paddling like mad. Paddling like mad. Accountability, right? The buck stops with you. If you've done wrong, own up. If things have not gone well in the company, take accountability. But if things have gone great, give credit to the guys. Give credit to the guys. Empathy and compassion. Care about people. Know what's going on in their lives. Support them through their journeys, and they'll be there for you. Communication, 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 as I've said before. Consistency. People want leaders who are consistent. What you say, what you do, is going to be consistent. Expertise. Keep learning and keep knowing. Keep knowing what's the latest all the time. The worst thing is to be led by somebody who is incompetent. Led by somebody who has no experience, no expertise. Keep learning so that you can add value to the conversation. And then be decisive. When you've made a decision, move on, execute on the decision. So, yeah, I've just got the last slide. It's just that there we go. So, because those who lead must lead themselves as well in order to lead others. And I want to end off with you. We've talked about your company and everything. Let's talk about you. During this crisis, are you watching your mental health? Are you, as an owner of a business, through all of this crisis, watching your mental health? Do you have a way of getting off the grid and to be able to recollect? Because if you're not doing that, you yourself are not going to survive. Personal health. Most people who know me, I'm not the most energetic of people, but I have had to change my diet. I've eaten more leaves during this entire lockdown than I have in my entire life. But it's important, physical exercise and what I eat, to be able to do this. Thirdly, financial position. Go through your financial position and understand it. What happens if I'm retrenched? What happens if we lose this business? What are those scenarios? And then the state of your relationship. There are many divorces today because we've not invested our time during this crisis to be close to the ones we love. Our children, our wives, our husbands. Let's build those so that the COVID does not destroy our relationship. If your relationship had comorbidities, then you must now protect your relationship. Your relationship with your children, it's important that we do all of that. And in the end, you must ask yourself this painful question: how will you measure your life? So, ladies and gentlemen, as one politician said, after speaking for 5 days, that concludes my opening remarks. So thank you so much, and I commend Sasol for what they have done to create this webinar, and their theme of Built to Last wants these businesses to last, and they want to build sustainable and lasting businesses. And I hope that if you take some of these steps, you can have your business last and be sustainable. Thank you so much.
Lincoln, thank you. There was a mouthful. Our audiences have got a lot of questions for you. I also have a lot of questions for you.
Yes.
But we really want to engage a lot more on the things you said. I've made a lot of notes. I grabbed some of the notes from our online platform. Same storm, different boats. Liquidity, cash flow, things we experience at home affects how we behave at work, GBV, scourge in the country. How does that affect you as a leader? How does that affect you as employees? How do we lead in the context of what the society is experiencing and how all of this interacts? So that's powerful. One question that comes from the audiences, and I think it speaks to people-centered leadership type of approach that you started with. And the question there, it relates to the context as we experience it today. A lot of companies are retrenching, but we see that people that have been retrenched are employees. Why are, if we're talking about people-centered leadership, why do we always retrench employees and not the leaders? That's what we're getting. People are concerned that whenever the storms come through, the people themselves that we saying our leadership should be centered around are the ones that are sacrificed, but the leaders who actually got us there remain.
Yeah. So let's start to unpack a retrenchment. A retrenchment normally happens when the revenues that you have gone down, but the cost base either remains or goes up. When the rate of growth of your revenue is going down and the rate of growth of cost is going up, you are in a scissors movement.
Yeah.
Just like at home, when the money is not there, you have to make changes. Cut certain things, stop certain things, and so on. It is never beautiful. A retrenchment is painful by any measure. And therefore, a leadership team has to look at first, what are all the non-employee things that can be stopped? What are the things that can be cut? And normally the right companies will go through and cut all of those things. Secondly, it will then say, what are the people-related things that we can also stop? Sometimes the company will say, we are not going to increase salaries. Another company will say, we will not pay bonuses. Another company will say, we will not pay dividends. All of those are things that you're trying to manage, that the costs don't go up when the revenue is not there. Then the last and probably most painful thing is when now you have to look at people. And again, it's not easy. You have to look at the entire company. Sometimes it's employees, sometimes it's middle managers, sometimes it's the executive. Companies that do what the writer says, who only just focus on the junior staff, are not going to be sustainable. Because in the long run, it will catch up with them. So everybody who is in a retrenchment will feel pain. They will less out. Even if you retrench 2 of the executive, they'll say, yeah, but you retrench 20 of the general staff. All of that thing is about the costs. And the more you are transparent with people, even if they don't agree, be transparent that says, we need to save 20 million rands. And actually, do you know that in that 20 million rands, the 10 million rands has come from these other things that we've stopped. The other 10 million will come from retrenchments. So it's not good for us to pretend that companies will not retrench. If the revenues are not there and the cost is not brought down, one of the things will be retrenchment. It's not easy, it's not nice, it is part of what is done. Now I want to come to the last part. Then there's the manner in which the retrenchment is done. It requires objectivity. It requires honesty. It requires transparency. It requires compassion. In my career, I've been involved in many retrenchments, and none of them have ever been easy. And sometimes you do the retrenchment to maybe reduce the staff complement by 20, but you are saving 150 jobs. These are the realities of business. And any entrepreneur who think that they will never get into that, they're in the wrong thing. If you are in business, those things will come, and you have to cut the cost. In fact, if I think at home, I normally have this argument or debate with my wife, and luckily she's not here, so I can be a bit open. I would be in the north of Nigeria, but the phone will say, I'm shopping in Sentin. And I'm thinking, why am I shopping in Sentin? But because I've been married for so many years, I will phone her and say, my love, I think we're being robbed. And she'll say, oh, no, we're just getting a few things. Only when I get home and I'll say to her, our rate of expenditure is far exceeding our rate of income. So we have an expenditure problem. And my wife says, no, we have an income problem. So the reality is, businesses of families at a time like this have to make difficult decisions about cutting things and retaining certain things. And some of the things that will be cut, unfortunately, are jobs that involve families. But to lie and say there will be no retrenchment doesn't make a leader a good leader. I think it makes you a great politician, but that's not the right way to approach it.
Second to that, I mean, we actually talking to business leaders, these CEOs of SMEs, and some of the sentiments that are coming through. I mean, we have Tato Twala saying, yes, as leaders we must understand mental health, and that's true. We have Timothy Matsine saying, I have learned that people do not care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Indeed.
We have the likes of Oratile saying, how do we care for people if all we knew is science, mathematics, and finances? How do we... That's all we're taught, right?
Yes, we must invest, and that's why I have this passion about leadership. I wish that I could spend most of my time in the business schools to actually make leaders or entrepreneurs to understand that this leadership skill is so fundamental. Because you may be a great accountant, great plumber, great whatever, you produce a business or a service or a product, but without the people, your business is not going to succeed. So we must teach leaders this ability to take people with them, to engage people and work with them. And that's important. In fact, when you think of leaders themselves, when they think about how they want to be treated by their bosses, they know exactly how they want to be treated by their bosses. But when it comes to them treating the next people, they think, no, we don't have time for those things. We just have to deliver. So I'm saying, treat people as you would want to be treated, with respect and dignity at all times.
Great. Very powerful question again from our audiences. I see the audiences are quite engaged today. And these are the things that they actually are facing on a daily basis. We have a question from Sabata Mushamme. The question is, it seems difficult to keep reinventing yourself, your businesses, especially when it seems all look good in your business. So your business is doing well, the income is coming, but at the same time, we kind of need to reinvent. How do you therefore stay within that space to become a company of the future and stay ahead of your competitors? Given all this, the need to reinvent, but you're doing well, but you know, something might come and go wrong. How do you, deal with all of these complexities?
Never silence the voices that think differently. Many companies do well, and then it becomes a thing. All of us are happy. We're drinking from the same Kool-Aid. Always have people in the organization that says, yeah, what about that? Have you thought about that? Are we seeing what's outside? Because one of the things that make companies not to succeed is hubris. Hubris comes when you're winning and you're doing well, and you think that everything revolves around your company. But sometimes that company that you are beating every single day, that company is planning something. They are thinking about taking you down. So let's have an environment of innovation. Innovation is very important. Thinking critically different is very important. And then speed of execution is very important. And also learn a lot about your competitors. Understand them. Never underestimate them. Let's give an example. 2004, 5, 6. If you ask many of the bankers, would a small bank come and take over from you? Like, what? We are it. Absa, Standard Bank, FNB, Nedbank. That was what was known. Suddenly, a small company called Capitec came. You remember some of their first adverts? They say, look at your bank. And then they piggy bank, they say they are eating your money. Suddenly, this bank started to grow. And those banks were doing well. But they didn't watch what was coming on the side.
Wow.
So never ever be complacent in business.
Wow.
Always be thinking about what's next, what are your competitors doing, and what does the market want. And what Capitec did was that it focused on what they thought the people wanted. And one of the things that they said that people don't want are fees. And then they just started to do that. You can argue now whether they are the same company as they were it doesn't matter. But now they're a big company with millions of clients. And they have been voted best bank in the world on a number of occasions.
It's actually amazing. Capitec has got the largest share price within the entire banking sector in South Africa. That's a shocker. I invest, and I invested in Capitec for quite some time. But at first, it was quite a risky investment. But like you say, before I move into some of the technical aspects, I just want to remain a little bit on the soft dimensions, because that's what it's coming from the audiences, and that's what the world is actually facing today. I mean, we have issues of mental health, et cetera, et cetera. I have a very kind of proposition / comments from Busi Manenta. She says, foster an environment of psychological safety. I'm big on showing care to those you lead. But it's often, especially in South Africa, especially in corporate South Africa, it's often misinterpreted to mean you are soft. I believe you don't have to be a monster to get people to perform. But how do we deal with these issues of patriarchy, these issues, because we cannot, as organizations, it's very difficult to divorce ourselves from our own context at home. If you are soft, like Busi says, you're not good. People who just interrupt when you talk and aggressive, they're seen as strong, as powerful. How do you deal with this? How do you become that a people-centered leader, while at the same time, earning your worth within the space in which you lead and operate?
At least now, after 25 years in the banking industry, I can speak and say that I chose very early on to follow the values that I was taught at home. And I decided to bring myself to work and not change in order to be successful or to get promotions or to get accolades from others. I knew my truth. And the way I was brought was to treat everybody with respect and dignity. It was to care about the next person, as to achieve things through others and be a team player. Those things have stuck with me. And I then say, let's look at the scoreboard. Let's look at the brutal people who treat people badly. Let's look at the people who humiliate others. Let's look at the people who are bullies and bosses and sexist and all of that. Let's look at their scorecard. And I've said, here's my scorecard. And I've done it the same way for 25 years. Because I don't agree that you have to be ugly. As Busi correctly points out, you don't have to be ugly to get results. You don't have to be horrible. You don't have to destroy people's lives, destroy people's careers, destroy people's families for success. I want success where the team feels that we've won, and we've won together. And that's been my philosophy all the time. It's lonely because others look at you, they gossip about you, they say he's too soft, he's do this. That's fine. But I know what's the right thing, and I've stuck with it for the last 25 years. Where I'm starting now, it's a new company. I bring the same values. I'm not going to change who I am simply because I want to succeed. I stick to those values because they matter.
Yeah, just for the audiences, I can remain a little bit on this issue before. I still want to talk about some technicals, especially a couple of elements you've mentioned with respect to Nokia, and I'll get back there. But for the audiences, there's a lot of links and books that are shared. I like this book mentioned by Bruce, Mindset by Carol Work. Please check it out. I see Chantal is supporting that. I think let's keep doing that. Let's keep sharing some of these things. This is time for us to share ideas, co-create, learn from each other, because eventually if we do that, South African economy is going to benefit. I like this idea of doing things together, and normally it comes from this sense of purpose of looking beyond the borders of self. So we need to live life in such a way that we don't only are self-centered, looking at ourselves, but just to cast an eye beyond your own borders and ensure that other people can learn from you. Sticking with this theme of soft leadership, inspiring, and all of that, is that enough to get the results?
For me, yes, because the vast majority of people wake up every day to do a good job. The vast majority. There's a small minority in any company who slag or take chances. But what leaders do is that they build their leadership philosophy on dealing with the minority, and therefore destroy the passion, the love of the job, all of those things that other people have. But once you create an environment for people to succeed, because nobody wakes up in the morning to come and work for Lincoln. Nobody. People wake up to work for themselves and their families. My job is to create that environment and that link for their ambitions to be in line with the organization's ambitions. Then suddenly what they contribute for themselves is also contributing for the organization, and suddenly it wins. That's the reality. But if on our mind we already have said the problem, people are lazy, the problem is that people are this, you already have a mental model that's negative. And what you do, you then come with your negativity, and you destroy everybody in the process. When I then deal with the minority, the ones who are slacking, they don't want to do their work, they do all sorts of these things, I then deal with the individual. And I have conversations with them in a closed environment where I say, this is unacceptable. What is the problem? Why are you doing this? And if it doesn't work, I'll ask that person to leave. Our law allows us to ask people to leave following the right process, because that person either doesn't want the job or doesn't care about the job, but they're destroying everybody else. What leaders sometimes also do wrong, they'll come in the morning and address everybody and say, I hate this thing of people coming late. People mustn't come late. 99% of the people are sitting there and think, what are they talking about? Because we're always here. Instead of going to that person who's late and say to them, this is unacceptable, it's affecting customers and it's affecting other stuff, and deal that behavior. So I think that the sentiment that says almost everybody is bad is what has led many leaders to implement the wrong things. So my culture, my style of work is that I lead from the front with a flag and not from behind with a whip.
Nice.
But when I have to act, I will act. Because leadership is no different from being a parent. The kids who can do no wrong end up in court covered by a jacket or a blanket or a newspaper because their parents never told them, you are wrong. Equally, the children who could do no right also do not achieve in life because the parents never affirmed them. What I'm saying is that when people do well, let's celebrate them publicly with enthusiasm and passion. When people have not done wrong, let's call them aside and reprimand them privately with respect and dignity. And if that reprimand doesn't work, then you have other actions. That's what has worked for me over the last 25 years.
Yep. Thank you for that. And just last question on the soft dimensions, and I now promise I'll definitely move to the technical aspects because I cannot wait for that. Just last question from Vanessa Fortune, and I'd actually like to link this question to one of the leadership conceptions you shared today, to the effect of lead from the heart and not from the mind. So Vanessa is saying, how can one bring this understanding regarding leadership across to business partners who are fixed-minded about leadership? So if we have to link it to that conception you've shared, how do we transform leaders? How do we transform leaders like this that are fixed and enable them to switch from the mind to the heart? This is like, how should leaders lead leaders, if I may put it that way? Because the SME CEOs are leaders.
Yes, they are.
They're working with other leaders that have fixed mindset. How should they operate in that space?
So in my journey, the biggest persuasion is through your own activity, your own behaviors. So I pontificated less, but I did more. I did more of doing these things consistently that people could see. Of course, when there are opportunities for me to speak, I would say, guys, let's lead this way. If I look back to the organization where I worked for 19 years, what it was 19 years ago was a completely different thing to what it is today. And you can imagine how few we were who thought this way 19 years ago. But because we had this belief, we acted that way, people gravitated to us, our teams succeeded, our people were happy. Many of the people I worked with are now doing amazing things. They're CEOs, they're doing all sorts of things because it was not about me, it's about the team. Others started to emulate and do that. But then even the ones that do well, they do well until there's a crisis. When there's a crisis, they go back to that horrible way of humiliating. And you say, no. Even within a crisis, we had a crisis one time where we lost 300 million rands in a matter of a few hours. We had a cyber attack. I didn't change who I was. Throughout, I had to remain calm, trust the team, pick the people who are going to fix this. They would fix it. And when we went to report to our CEO to say, look, we kind of lost about 300 million, and we don't know where this thing is in our systems, he didn't fire us. He said, thank you, go and work on it. I'll deal with the investors and whatever. That's what leadership is about, right? Leadership is building people and making people succeed in the process. So I think that what I think it's Vanessa, what Vanessa has to do is to say, if she believes in this culture, she must continue in that culture, even if there's only her. When it's dark, you light a candle. You don't look around as to who else has lit a candle. Then somebody else's is dark. Suddenly, there's light because somebody lit a candle. So those of you who are pioneers in this environment, be those pioneers.
Yeah. I like this. It's actually a very funny thing, this idea of always casting your eye, and you just mentioned that, into the future. One of my friends actually said, in a very funny way, that 100 years ago, if people told you that animals will have doctors, you'll think they're crazy. I mean, today, dogs actually have psychologists.
Exactly.
People take dogs to a psychologist to treat a dog's mind. If you said that 100 years ago, people would think, you like quite crazy. So we need to have this forward-thinking mindset. Moving into the technical aspects now, like I did promise, you've mentioned something powerful. You said that a Nokia CEO, when he was asked questions, he said, we actually did not make any mistakes, but somehow we went under. What does that mean today? Does it mean playing safe alone is not enough? And what is it? How should we play unsafe?
One of the things that companies don't do well is being honest with one another about the performance of the business. You know, if, for example, there's a survey on customer experience, everybody should know what the results are. Are we number one or are we number last?
Yeah.
If there's financial results coming out, we should know, right? Complaints on Twitter and whatever about our company, we should know, so that all of us collectively know where we stand. Because it's that realization that allows for action to take place. What I think happens in most companies is that people tell themselves the good news stories, and they don't allow themselves to know the realities of what's gone wrong. And also, if the culture doesn't open up for wrongdoing, things go wrong. So I'm going to give you just two examples.
Yep.
We hear of all the stories of state capture today. But these are companies that had thousands of people. Thousands of people, right? Now, the newspapers were writing something is wrong. There were people saying something is wrong. But people inside those companies, at what point, some maybe did, but how many people saw that, guys, we're needing a bailout every year, things are not working out, the company's not making money, all of those things. Now some of those companies are gone. Jobs are lost. So transparency about where the company is and what it's doing is important. If you're a business owner, share with your staff where we are, what we're doing, what are some of the plans, are there any ideas, and so on. And that will kind of help for us to do that. The second example is the Nokia one, where a year before that comment, that CEO wrote a letter, and that letter was called the Burning Platform letter. It went viral, but it was too late. You know, it was too late.
Yeah.
That letter should have come maybe 2 years before, where it says, guys, these are the problems. We're losing market share, we're losing clients, we're losing this. We are not having those kinds of conversations. And sometimes people themselves are not interested to know as long as they're getting their bonus.
Yep.
So when you actually ask most people, even in large companies, they think that as long as they deliver their projects and they're liked by their boss, they'll get the bonus. But the reality is different. The bonus is paid when a company as a whole does well,
Wow.
which means every employee should be interested to know how the company is doing, because that will determine whether there's likely to be a bonus or not a bonus, or there's likely to be a retrenchment or not a retrenchment. So if I could give any message to any employee, make it your business to know how your company is doing, because that will give you a sense whether is this company close to closing, Are we likely to retrench? Are we likely to get our bonuses? Most people will just tell you, I focus on this department. Right? If you ask, we are here at Sasol, how many people at Sasol know how Sasol is performing? But people do their piece. Oh, as long as I've got my thing. One day, you are doing well, you've got your things, everything, now you come to work, but everybody's going out. Where are they going? You didn't hear. Sasol is closing. Just because you didn't care, you were only focusing on what you do. You have to understand how a company is going.
What a session. Thanks a lot. I really share the sentiments with Imelda Kekana. I think she says dynamic, inspiring to the core, indigenous in nature. Thank you. We appreciate you, and we're hopeful that you can join us again in the future. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.